All right, good morning. We just finished having a double snow day, which is fantastic. And this week, we are going to be looking at the creative process. And for everyone, the creative process is going to be different. For myself, I like to get out, go for a walk, look at nature, try to even see things to take pictures of, and that's how I get my creativity going. Also, this week, we're going to read about the critical analysis process. And in the critical analysis process is kind of once our project is done, how we can look at it to improve, how we can look at other people's work and find creativity from that, and even look at, not to be critical of it in a negative sense, but, why did they put certain things where they did, and how you can look at a piece of work and see the different things within it. So we're going to read about the creative process this week, and we're going to read about the critical analysis process, which happens at the end. More focused this week, though, on the creative process and what it means to be creative for you. Creativity is something that is fun, right? You get to do all kinds of different things and get to be creative. And I'm going to say in this class, there's going to be no judging. What your creative process is totally up to you. Okay? Now, meaning, doesn't mean you don't do a creative process, right? Because to be creative, usually there is a process, whether it's jot notes, whether it is doodling, it doesn't matter what it is, but usually there is something in that creative process before you actually start a project. And sometimes that creative process happens throughout the project, right? Once you start a project, that's when the creative juices might start flowing and you get to have different ideas. Definitely when you are even doing partner work or group work in school, you hear other people's ideas, and that's what spurs you to have good ideas as well. So we're going to be looking at the creative process. We are also, every time I make one of these videos, we're going to be doing like a snapshot on different camera techniques, different cameras that are out there, kind of just not necessarily related to the material for the week, but just general knowledge about cameras. And this week's snapshot is going to be on, what is the difference between different cameras? Our old SLR with the little single lens reflex inside. So when I look through this, the image is coming through here, bouncing off a mirror, bouncing up inside of it, and then coming out the little viewfinder inside of it, right? So when you look at different tech on different cameras, it heavily talks about, what is the image that you're seeing, and is that the image you're taking a picture of? Because sometimes that reflection isn't necessarily the full image. So classic is the oldie where you used to put the film inside. Sorry, I have my dog with me and she's banging into the tripod. The old one where you put the film inside, you take a picture, and then you have to develop it, and that is a process. And I'm going to say, that process, if you were to do it today, because you still can do that today, maybe it's going to cost you around $30, maybe $40 in terms of buying the film, taking it somewhere to get developed, and then actually printing the image. That one has an expense to it, but it's still lots of fun. I love doing this one with students where you take a picture and everyone always looks at the back, right? Because you're hoping to see an image, but the image is inside the camera, right? And I'm going to say, so this one is by far the most difficult because you actually have to set the settings properly for the camera. You take a picture, you have no idea whether or not it worked out or not. There is little different things inside when you look through the viewfinder that kind of shows you the exposure compensation. It lets you know if things are going to be blown out or too dark. There is a little reading inside of that. But then fast forward, technology gets better. We get the DSLR, which is the one that most people have today if you do have one of these actual handheld cameras, which is digital, which is beautiful. I snap a shot, I can see it on the back of the camera to let, hey, that picture actually did work out the way I want. You put a little SD card in there, you buy an SD card for maybe $30, and I don't know, you can take 3,000 pictures on that, and you can do that over and over and over again, right? You put them onto your computer. There's not this running expense that there was with these ones. Now fast forward to today and mirrorless cameras. That's the big push. That's why everyone really likes a mirrorless camera nowadays, is because when I'm looking through it, that is actually the image you are capturing. It is showing you, it's not a mirror inside. This little viewfinder on the back is literally a digital image. It's a little screen you're looking at, so you know what the actual exposure is. So that's the big difference between what our old cameras were that used to take the light in, bounce it around a mirror, shoot it out the viewfinder, and you got to see it, take a picture, never got to see what it looked like. Then the digital SLRs, digital cameras, which lots of people have, that one you could take a picture, and when you're looking through it through the viewfinder though, you're still seeing the world, right? Because it's just a mirror image of what is. Light comes in, bounces around some mirrors, comes out through the viewfinder, you take a picture, but you don't know if the exposure is gonna work out just from looking at it, right? You had to look at the back of the camera and be like, did my picture turn out, right? Nowadays, with a mirrorless camera, when you are looking through the viewfinder, you are seeing a digital screen. So it's no longer a mirror inside just reflecting the world. It's the information is coming through onto the sensor, and that sensor is showing you an image of literally what you're gonna take a picture of. So people like it because you're no longer getting overexposed pictures or underexposed pictures. What you see is what you get, which is why mirrorless cameras are the new technology which is coming out, because no longer is it take a picture, hope it turned out, looking through the viewfinder, taking a picture and having to look at the back of the camera. Now it's looking through the camera and what you see is what you get, which is why mirrorless cameras are the new technology of the future, right? SD cards, that's always the same thing. SD cards are getting faster, but that's where we have moved to today. Now, that's not to say, because mirrorless cameras right now are obviously the most expensive, that doesn't mean you need a mirrorless camera. If you're happy with seeing the world, taking a picture, and looking at the back of the camera to know if it worked out, right? Much cheaper option, and it's a half a second to look at the back of the camera. Not a big deal. Those are still the cameras that I used. I have not bought the new mirrorless cameras yet, because once you understand how to make the settings correct, you can feel confident when you take a picture, it's gonna work out. You're not worried about looking through the viewfinder and seeing the exposure and everything, all the different settings to be the way you want. You're trusting your settings. All right, that's your snapshot for today. Let's jump back into our creative process. All right, I'm gonna walk you through the consolidation part right now for this week, which is where we're gonna take that little face and we're gonna put all the different things that help us be creative inside of it. I'm gonna walk you through how to use Photoshop right now. Okay. All right, so right now we are going to open up Photoshop. Hopefully you have downloaded your Photoshop app, and we are going to import the picture, and we're gonna add, make our creative process face. So I'm gonna create a new, and there are different size formats, and when you see it on your screen, you can click the iPad one, which makes it kind of easy because that'll be the size of the dimensions. I'm gonna say create, and then you have your blank template. Now, you are going to save that file, and I have it in the content as a JPEG. So if you look down at the fourth one from the bottom, there's that little landscape picture that always represents a photo. And if I click photos, it's gonna bring up my photo, and I'm gonna touch the empty face, and you can see there I did make a number of different copies. Now, for this, we do not want to, you can see on the left-hand side where it is scale, rotate, skew, distort, a lot of good features that we may use in the future. But for right now, I'm going to leave the size. So in the upper right-hand corner, it says done. I'm just gonna click done. And now it's added my photo. You can see now over here, and I'm gonna toggle between the two so you can see what it's doing. The very top one gives a condensed view of the layers. The second one gives an open view of the layers, just so you can see, because that's the beautiful thing about Photoshop, it allows you to add multiple layers. I like to work with it open, but if you want to work with it closed, that's totally fine and up to you. Now, our first step is we want to make it so that we can just add pictures, but not have to worry about things going beyond the border of the face. So the third one down is a quick selection tool. And you can see there's all different kinds of ways that you can outline a picture in Photoshop. I'm gonna choose the quick selection. You're gonna use that one the most often. So quick selection, which means now when I put my finger over top of the face, it's gonna add the marching ants, right? That's what we call those little black and white lines that are kind of walking around. They kind of look like marching ants if you look closely, moving around the face. And now I've selected the face. And down at the bottom, some options have popped up where I'm going to say refine edge, because it's going to allow me to do some other things. And you can see in the top where it says view mode, it says marching ants. I'm going to choose that to say overlay, because now I can see, instead of it just showing as marching ants, it's going to show me what am I actually cutting out? What am I getting rid of? Where here it is showing that the red is what will disappear and the face will remain, but I actually want it to be the opposite. So I'm going to invert it. I am going to make the face part be the part that disappears, which means when I put in a picture, underneath it, it's almost like it's overlaying it right in there, okay? So switch it from marching ants, even though you can leave it as marching ants if you want, but make it overlay because then you actually get to see what it is, right? And that's all this view mode is doing, is giving you different options for you to view what you've selected. And overlay is a nice one. So then if you scroll down to the bottom, it says output, and I'm gonna say make it a new layer. And then once I've done that, I'm gonna say done. And now you can see over on the side here in my layers, I have a third layer now, and if you can look closely, the face is removed. All right, so now I have my base layer, which is white. I have my second layer, which is the full picture, and my top layer now has the face part removed. So now I can start to import pictures, and these are things that inspire me, right? My creative process, I love to come up with ideas. So I just found that one. Once again, I do want to shrink it down a bit. This is with that first option. But just to show you what it can do, I'm gonna place it just beyond the borders of the head. And I'm gonna hit done. Now you can see it is the very top layer. And if I hold my finger on it, it kind of allows me to move it. And I'm gonna move it just below that layer. And now it automatically shoots behind that layer, and I have nice clean edges all the way around my picture. So now I'm gonna do this with a couple pictures. I'm gonna add some more things that inspire me, and I love going for hikes in nature as something that inspires me. And I'm gonna shrink it down. If you hold the little top button, it'll rotate it. I'm gonna put it there, and I'm gonna say done. Now you can see that it's underneath that top layer where the face is cut out, but say I even wanted it underneath the ideas, right? If I hold it, it's gonna allow me to move it, and I can just pop it right underneath it. And I'm gonna look to add another picture that I find inspiring, which is always trying to come up with creative different pictures. And this one I use a special housing for my camera, which allows me to take half the picture underwater and half the picture above it. And then I'm gonna click done. But say I want this picture to be on top of the ideas. I just move it above it and then drop it, and then the picture will pop above it. All right, I'll do it one more time. I'm gonna add a file. Going for hikes in nature is always a fun. Another one, this is my wife and going for a hike, and we'll rotate this. And see, you can always see that it just falls behind that original shape. So you don't have to worry, and you can apply this to any class that you're working in with any project. If you ever want something to go behind it, this is a very useful tool in Photoshop. And then once again, if I click this text tool on the side and I touch the screen, one thing that always inspires me is the word exploring. Right? And I know it's shifted up. And if you just two finger, and I'm holding this with two fingers right now, zooming in, just like you do with every device, that's how you can move your font. And if you touch the first arrow, you can move it around the screen, right? So that very top arrow in Photoshop allows you to move it. Now, the one thing as well, say you want to move it, you do have to make sure, and I'll move it over here, that in your layers, you are actually highlighting the word explore, and the word explore will move. All right, so One thing that I might also include, if I really like it, is a quote, right? I'm a person that loves inspirational quotes. That's something that inspires me. I might throw that into this as well. Now, right now on the screen, I'm not going to watch you or have you watch me refine this one into all the things that inspire me. But I have made another one that I'm going to speed through super quick, that I went through and took the time to kind of put little borders in and make sure my fonts were all nice rather than rushing through it, right? Because for this one, I've been going for a couple minutes, but take your time, try to make yours a nice final project. So up at the top where that little box with the arrow, you're gonna click it, you're gonna publish and export. A JPEG is a good format for you to have it. A PNG is if you wanted the background to disappear, and the PSD is a Photoshop file, but just save it as a JPEG. And I'm gonna hit export. It's gonna ask me where I want to export it to. You guys might want to, in terms of saving space, send it to your OneDrive. Make a OneDrive account called photography or file so that you are always just uploading to OneDrive. That is a way to save space on your iPad. But for me, I'm just gonna save the image right to my iPad and then go from there. But if you are a person who's finding that your iPad is filling up with too many pictures, start really uploading to OneDrive in order to save space. And then you have it. So then if I go to my pictures, it is my very first picture that I created. And once again, if I want to edit it, right, click the little edit tools, I can crop it down just so I don't have that full background to it. And click done. And then I have my final image of my creative process. And with this, maybe I write some more words in there and things like that. But that's it. I look forward to seeing all your pictures of what inspires you to be creative. All right, later guys. All right, so that's gonna be it for this week. Read the Minds On section for the action, post a creative person into our discussion post, and then the third step, fill out that little head with everything that represents you that we just went through on Photoshop, and that's gonna be the week. If you finish early, you're done early. If it takes you, over into the weekend, that's okay, but we're always in this course gonna try to make it. I'll assign stuff on Monday, done by Friday. I'll assign stuff on Monday, done by Friday. And as I said, some weeks might just be in a Minds On, some weeks might be Minds On Action, some weeks might be all three, or just the consolidation. All right, that's it for this week. Have yourself a good week. I can't wait to see all of your creative process and all your little faces. It's gonna be great. All right, later guys.